very much. Thank you to everyone attending this afternoon. I certainly appreciate it. I want to get to as many questions as possible. I'll probably take the questions at the end just to make things a little bit better, and then Anton and I can go through a little bit of a Q&A as we go. But I'm going to be talking about the Content Inc. model. That's what I wrote my most recent book. This is my fourth book on the topic. It's really targeted to entrepreneurs, startups, and small businesses. Although if you work for a larger enterprise, you will definitely see that there's a lot of application for that as well. Now, I believe that there's one key to a successful presentation. I don't know how many of you know my background, but I do about 100 presentations a year. I enjoy presenting, and I've sort of learned that there's a couple keys to presenting. You might be thinking, well, I hope I talk about maybe relevant case studies, things that are important to you. Whatever you have in your mind about what makes success, you're probably not right, unfortunately. It's actually, the key here is that I set extremely low expectations for you. And the reason I say that is I want you to really get one thing. I'm going to give you 10 takeaways by the end of this presentation about how you can drive a content-first business to attract and retain customers through building audiences. But I want you to look for that one thing that you can really get out of this presentation and take into your business, into your personal life, into your career, and use it as quickly as you possibly can. Because there's going to be some of these things that you're going to say, Joe, this just is not for me. It's not for my business. But I guarantee you that we'll find at least one. Hopefully you'll find two things, and I'll exceed your expectations as we go. So here we go. We're going to get started. I'm going to take you back a little bit into history here. So let's go into the mid-90s. The website was a wonderful creation for marketers and communications and public relations professionals, because now we could take all the information that's about us, all of our product and service information that we traditionally had in print format, and we were going to upload it to the website, and it was going to be great because we could get that information out to the people that wanted it, and it was just this wonderful invention that we made up here. And then the second greatest invention is this thing called social media. So social media was born, and now we could not only take the information about our products or services, our features and benefits that were on our website, but now the belief was, oh my goodness, now we can blog about it. Now we can put it on YouTube. Now we can put it on, it can be found easily on different forums in Google. You have webinars, you have podcasts, you have all different types of social media that's out there. And so that was the real belief, is that great, we can now sell more and talk more about ourselves to get the type of attention that we wanted in order to drive our business forward. Unfortunately, what we found out is that nobody cares about our products and services. They only care, our customers care about their own pain points, their own needs, and they can afford not to care about what we have to say. Well, why is that? Why can they afford to ignore us? And I absolutely love this chart, so I want to spend some time on this because I think it's important. Most of us, a lot of the companies that we work with still deal with the fact that our customers are going to be forced to look at the information we provide to them. So go back before 1990, there were only 8 channels that we could communicate with. And our customers were relegated. They were actually forced to watch our advertisements, to look at our features and benefits, because they didn't have a choice. They had to get the information that way. Now let's fast forward to 2015, 2016, and beyond. Now there are hundreds of channels that our customers could get their information. Most of our customers have a smartphone device with them, 24/7 access to whatever information that they would want to get, so they can ignore us. And I think that's the biggest issue that's happened for us. Even though we can now publish and we can now do social media, we can now get our information out on our website, it better be relevant. It better be focused on the pain points and the issues of our audience, or they're simply going to ignore us, like they've done with a lot of advertising that's available today. So now I'm going to get into a little bit about content marketing. This is my background. I've been in the content marketing industry for over 15 years now. And this is why we've seen probably content marketing is the fastest growing area of internet marketing right now, because of the fact that our customers can't ignore us. The people that we're trying to target don't have to pay attention to our product, our service information, our features, our benefits, because they can get all the information they want to themselves. So now we get into content marketing, and I'll just define this so you have an idea of where I'm coming from. So instead of talking about our products and services, we're going to create valuable, relevant, compelling information on a consistent basis through our own channels in order to build an audience over time. So our goal is very simple. You can compare it to a media company. So a media company that has been creating content to, maybe they've been using advertising, or maybe they've been selling paid content. It's a similar model, except we're not monetizing it through paid content or advertising. We're actually monetizing it by selling more of our own products and services. So content marketing has been wonderful. This is a Google Trends chart of the interest in content marketing globally over time. And you'll see that if content marketing was a stock, we would definitely want to own that. Really wasn't a term until 2007, 2008, and now it is the de facto term for how brands are creating content to build audiences over time. If you look at any of our research, and I know it's different for wherever you're located at, but if we look at, we've got research that's coming from Australia, from the UK, from North America, and so you'll have to see kind of what the usage is for you. I'm assuming it's not 90%, but I'm under the assumption that you are doing some form of content marketing, whether you know it or not. And if you want to get any of our research, there's the short link that you can get the research to, bit.ly/cm-research, where the majority of companies out there are doing some form of content marketing. Here's the bad news. The good news is, yeah, a lot of people are saying, yes, Joe, we believe in this. We want to communicate differently with our customers. We want to send them back, create value for them. The problem is that this is the effectiveness rate, according to our research, for content marketing. So whereas 90%, 9 out of 10 businesses are doing some form of content marketing, 3 out of 10 say that they're successful using content marketing, which is tragic, which is not good. I mean, we need to absolutely do better than that. Why is this happening? Couple reasons. Content marketing, first of all, is an ongoing initiative. It is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And most organizations look at content marketing as a short-term campaign. The second, most businesses are still talking about their own products and services. Maybe they're telling it more in storytelling form, but they're still talking about themselves. That's a problem. We know that the majority of companies, according to the research, they don't have a documented content marketing strategy. They don't have a strategy that's written down anywhere in the organization. They're just saying, oh, let's do blogging now. Let's do podcasts now. Let's do videos now. And they're not writing that strategy down. That's a problem. And what we also found is 55% of the people that we surveyed don't know what success looks like when it comes to content marketing. So they're doing some form of content marketing. They're doing webinars. They may be doing a print magazine, a newsletter, blogging, podcasts, videos, whatever the case is, but they don't know why they're doing it. And they're really treating content more like advertising. And we can't do that. We have to treat it a little bit differently. And I'm going to talk about that through the rest of the presentation. So now so that kind of sets the stage for where we are right now, why content marketing is so important for your business. But why are we having all these problems? And now that I'm going to get into the Content Inc. model a bit, and I'm going to talk about the 6-step process. As I was going through this whole thing, and I've been working with these big companies, I'm like, there's got to be a better way. Like, why aren't we seeing better success with what's going on in the content marketing industry? Here's my orange notebook. Of course, Anton, you're talking about the man in orange. Everything I've got is orange. Here's my orange notebook that you're seeing. And I have a goal in this notebook to write a book every 2 years. So I've written a book in 2009, 2011, 2013 was Epic Content Marketing, and now 2015 is Content Inc. Initially, I wanted to write the book about what we were doing at Content Marketing Institute, because I'm like, with very little investment, with very little money, we focused on building an audience first, and we're able to build the fastest growing business media company in North America in a 5-year period. And I'm like, I want to tell that story. But then I realized nobody cares about me, right? They don't care about what's going on with us, Joe Pulizzi. They don't care about Content Marketing Institute. They care about themselves. So how do I write a book that's for the industry that really is going to help businesses do better at content marketing? So I thought about this, and I'm like, okay, well, what did we do? We really built an audience first. We built a loyal relationship with a group of people that we were targeting, and then we launched products secondarily. Whether you're a small business, whether you're a startup, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a big business, this is the way we have to think about it. We have to build value first before we extract value. It's very, very important. I'm going to talk about that later. We have to build value first before we can ask for money from them if we're going to use a proper content marketing approach. And I wondered, how many companies were doing this? So I went out there, I got the Content Marketing Institute team, and we started to interview all these companies, all these very successful companies from around the world that were building audiences first through a content-first approach, and then they were launching products secondarily. And it was really amazing. We found all these companies that were really doing an amazing job, and some of the pictures of the case studies I'm going to talk about here in a second. It was just hard to believe that this was happening. And as we looked at their models and really went in depth into those models, what we did is we reverse engineered them. So we said, okay, here's where they are now, here's their success. And we worked all the way back and we said, what did they do to get there? And this was the amazing thing and why I'm so excited about the book and this presentation that I'm giving you right now is because every one of those companies in every one of the different industries they were in followed the same 6 steps. And that's what I'm going to share with you today is these 6 steps that I believe any company can take if you're trying to build a loyal audience and then actually generate profit and revenue by building that audience. These are the 6 steps. So what I'm going to do now and for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to go through these 6 steps. I'm going to give you some case studies throughout and give you some examples of each of these steps and then how you can take this and integrate this into your own business. So the first step of the Content Inc. model is the sweet spot. What is the sweet spot? The sweet spot is the intersection of 2 different things. On the one side, if you're a small business, this is your passion area. This is what gets you up in the morning. This is what you're going to want to create content over and over about, and you need passion because it takes time to do, if you're doing a podcast weekly or if you're doing a blog every day, you have to get up, you have to be passionate about it, you have to be motivated. For a larger company, this might be a significant customer pain point, something that's keeping your customers up at night. They're really super challenged with it. You're passionate about solving that pain point for them. So that's the one side. On the other side, it's a knowledge or skill area that you actually have an authority to speak on. Where do you have some knowledge that's greater than any other company out there, or that's at least at the elite sections of companies, that you have an opportunity to communicate on that people will actually listen to, that you have the credibility to talk on? That is the sweet spot. I'm going to give you an example of the sweet spot. This is a really interesting case study, and this is sort of sweeping the areas of the United States. This is Andy Schneider. He's known as the Chicken Whisperer. He's very, very popular in different areas of the United States, and he was very interested in raising chickens in his backyard. This was a growing thing. He wanted to do this, and what he found out is that he went on to Google. He went to find expertise on the web about this and couldn't find, how do you do this? How do I do this so my chickens don't die? What's the whole idea about this? And he said, well, I better find this information. So he started to call out to people, and he learned and became one of the leading experts in this and knowing how to raise chickens in your backyard. He started to put meetups together. His friends wanted to get together and say, hey, Andy, we want to raise chickens in our backyard too. So he started to get little meetups together in houses. And then people from other cities in the United States would call Andy up and say, Andy, can you come and meet with our neighborhood? We want to learn how to do this. And he started to do meetups all over the country. It became very, very popular. And then he put together, actually, let me show you. So this is Andy's website. He put together a website sort of all around this idea of being the chicken whisperer. But where he really became famous is he put together a radio show. So he started 5 days a week. He started to produce a radio show all about raising chickens in your backyard. Believe it or not, over a short period of time, he was able to get 20,000 listeners a week to his radio show and became very, very popular. And I'll talk a little bit more about Andy later because I want to tell you the story about how he actually became really famous and really started to generate revenue through the process. But let's look at how Andy did it. How did Andy go from not knowing anything to then getting 20,000 people every week to listen to his radio show that ended up launching a very substantial business for him? On the one side of the sweet spot, Andy loves to teach. Obviously, he went to his friends. His friends wanted to know about raising chickens in your backyard, and he wanted to teach them. He was very passionate about that. On the other side, he became the leading expert in the world on backyard poultry, on raising chickens in your backyard. That was his success area. So that was the sweet spot. Now let me give you another example of a sweet spot from a very large company. Let's say that you were targeting farmers. let's say on the one side, what's the biggest pain point for farmers? Well, how do you get more out of your farm? How do you use technology the correct way? How are you more efficient with the land that you have so that you can get more produce out of that? So that's the one side. That's the pain point side. On the other side, let's say that you're a company that understands the technology in the agricultural industry better than anyone on the planet. This is actually a real case study, and this is John Deere. So John Deere did this back in 1895, believe it or not. So it's been over 120 years now that John Deere has been doing this. They launched a magazine called the Furrow Magazine, which you see at the lower right-hand portion of the slide, in 1895, targeting small business farmers on how they could be more effective at farming and all the things that we were talking about, operational challenges. The Furrow Magazine is still going strong today, 1.5 million subscribers, 14 countries, 40 different languages. So if you think about what they've been able to do, John Deere is now the largest media company in the farming industry with that 1.5 million subscriber base. So you almost have to think a little bit differently. We think of media in a certain way, but John Deere has become the largest media company, but instead of generating revenues through selling advertising into the Furrow Magazine or selling their content directly, they are making money by selling more John Deere equipment. And it's just amazing what's been able to happen. Now, here's another thing that you might not realize. Over the 120-year period, I talked to the John Deere team that puts this together. They said that maybe there's been 15 times where they've ever mentioned their own products and services in the content itself. It's very hard for a lot of companies to do that because immediately we've got the sales team. We want to sell. We want to sell, sell, sell. But you actually have to hold back. And what we're trying to do is educate. We really want to be a thought leader in this case, and that's what John Deere was able to do. So that's the sweet spot. Now we move to the most important area of the content tilt. By the way, we've not created any content yet. All we're doing is building the strategy at this point. So now we go on to the content tilt. And I'm going to tell you a story about Anne Reardon. Anne Reardon is known as the baking queen of Sydney, Australia. She decided she was a stay-at-home mom. She wanted to start a baking blog. And she did. She had 100 YouTube subscribers in January 2012. And as of today, she has 2 million subscribers. Well, how did Anne do this with a baking blog? This is what her baking blog looks like. You go to howtocookthat.net and you'll see Anne baking all sorts of things. But I want you to think about this. This is really important. How many baking blogs and baking videos are there on the web today? There are thousands, probably tens of thousands every day that go up. How is Anne going to cut through the clutter and actually get anyone to pay attention to her if there's 10,000 other people doing the same exact thing? This is the problem with most business content today, because we create a white paper, we create a blog post, we're creating all this content, but what we realize is it's just like every other piece of content out there. We're talking about things that our competitors are talking about. We're talking about things that other bloggers are talking about. You have to find a content tilt that differentiates you from everyone else out there. So this is what we found is you'll easily find your sweet spot. Every company can find the sweet spot, but most people start building their content based off of just the sweet spot. You have to take it one additional step forward, and you have to tilt that content. You have to look at that content a little bit differently, and you have to figure out how can we find an area of content that has little to no competition that we actually have a fighter's chance of breaking through and getting the attention of an audience. This is really, really important as we go through. And every one of our case studies does this. How did Anne do this? Let me give you some examples. She says, well, how can I take 5 pounds of Snickers bars and put them into a cake? And that's what you're looking at right now. And that's what she was able to do. Okay, that's one example. Here's another example. You might have seen this. This is the Instagram cake. She said, how do I create a chocolate cake that is the perfect replica of an Instagram logo? This thing went viral, had millions and millions of views on it. So what was Anne's content tilt? How was Anne able to cut through the clutter with all the other baking blogs and baking videos out there? It's because she tilted her content, and her tilt was impossible food creations. So you see your sweet spot at the top, which is great, but you can't stop there. You have to go down and figure out it's the content tilt that makes all the difference. It's that next step. This is the step of the strategy that you have to figure out. How do you differentiate your content? How do you tell a different story so that people will actually pay attention to you? And her tilt was all about asking, boy, that's impossible. She wants somebody to see her blog and see her video and say, wow, that is impossible. And so you have to think about what yours is. What is that different thing? What's that spin on the topic that you're going to put to it that's going to tilt and get the attention of your customers? So let me give you a strategy for how to do this. One of the tools, one of the most underutilized tools out there, and it's a free tool, is Google Trends. So what Google Trends does is it will look at search engine behavior over time, relative over time. So let me give you an example. So let's say that for whatever reason, let's say that I want to start a knitting blog. That's my, I found my sweet spot, but I'm looking at my content tilt. But I know that right now, if I start a knitting blog, how am I going to cut through the clutter? There are hundreds of other knitting blogs out there. Why would anybody pay attention to my knitting blog? And if you look at the trend on the screen, you'll see that it peaks during the winter time every year. Because why? Because it's cold. So people want, hey, let's get something that's knitted and cover ourselves up, or maybe it's for holiday presents. So those are the two reasons why you see the spike every holiday season there. Oh, I just lost that. Hold on. I just hit the wrong button, Anton. So hold on 1 second. I'll bring it back. Bear with me, folks. That was my fault. I hit the stop button instead of the forward button, and that's not what I was supposed to do. All right, here we go. We're coming up on it. So let's say that I wanted to do the knitting blog. Here we go. Okay, so we go to Google Trends and you type in your topic. So your topic is knitting. And then let's say that you go down below, and I want you to look at the related searches bar on the right side. And what you'll see when we go to the next one, you see this area of breakout terms. And these are terms that are just starting to catch on fire, that are just starting to get in popularity, that a lot of people haven't taken advantage of. So let's look at knitting, and I'm saying, oh, okay, there's super strong interest in things like the knitting loom, knitting for beginners, double knitting, knitting cast on. I don't even know what these things are. But that's how you can think of, oh, well, instead of doing a blog on knitting, maybe I'm doing something specifically for the knitting loom, and that's coming back. I don't know. I'm just making this stuff up. But this is how you can use Google Trends to figure out, how do you take your content tilt to the next area where you can really focus on a niche? And here's the thing. You don't want to go broad with this. You want to go super niche. You cannot go small enough with a niche. What we want is a loyal, valuable audience. That doesn't matter what the size is. And if we can be the resource for that audience, they will end up buying from us. And I'll give you some examples about how that will work in just a little bit. Okay, so here's another exercise about how to figure out your content tilt. Now, what do all media companies do that you probably don't do with your content? Now, I've launched been on 30 to 35 different launches of media products, magazines, newsletters, webinar programs, blogging programs for traditional media properties. And every time we've launched one, we start with an editorial mission statement. That's just standard practice. If you're in the publishing industry, you do an editorial mission statement when you're launching anything. Nobody does this on the brand side. No businesses that I go into have an editorial mission statement, even though they're creating all kinds of content. An editorial mission statement, what we would call a content marketing mission statement in this example, is so critical so that you can understand what that tilt is you're focusing on and how you can keep delivering content specific to that mission at all times, and you don't deviate from that. So let me give you some examples. There's 3 parts of this, but I'm going to go through a couple examples so you could see it. Here's homemadesimple.com. This is from Procter & Gamble, the large consumer product goods company. They have a site that's dedicated to organizational tips for the home, how do I get recipes, those types of things. And they have, believe it or not, they have more than 5 million people that have signed up and asked for information. Isn't that the greatest sales information in the world, right? It's sales information that's so good, it doesn't feel like sales to people that they're willing to sign up for it. They started with an editorial mission statement, in this case, a content marketing mission statement that looks like this. Enabling women to have more quality time with their families. We're targeting women, and what's the outcome for the audience? Have more quality time with their families. So what kind of content would you see on this site? You're not going to see recipes that take 6 hours. You're going to see very short recipes so that you can have, so that the women that you're targeting can actually have more quality time with their families. Let me give you another example. This is Indian Corporation, a small business-to-business manufacturing company. They manufacture industrial soldering equipment, which is probably one of the most boring areas in the world. But so if you think about your content, it doesn't have to be sexy content. It has to just be interesting content for that particular person that you're trying to target. They started a blog in 2005. In the first 18 months of that blog, they saw a 600% increase in qualified leads. They started with a content marketing mission statement with their blog. And here it is. Helping engineers answer the most challenging industrial soldering questions. They're targeting one audience, engineers. They're not talking to plant managers. They're not talking to chief financial officers. They're just talking to engineers. What are they trying to do? They're only answering challenging industrial soldering questions. They're not talking about siding. They're not talking about ball bearings. They're talking about just industrial soldering questions, an area where they can be the leading expert in the world. All right. So let me break this down because there's three parts of this, and I'm going to use an example. This is an example from Australia called Digital Photography School. A gentleman named Darren Rouse put this together. And right on his About Us site, he has his content marketing mission statement. It says, "Welcome to Digital Photography School, a website with simple tips to help digital camera owners get the most out of their cameras." So when you do this, there's three parts, and we'll use Darren's as the example. One is, who's the core target audience? To Darren, it's digital camera owners. What is going to be delivered? Simple tips, short, simple tips that they can use. And the most important, what is the outcome for the audience? We want them to get the most out of their cameras. That's the most important part. When you do a content marketing mission statement here, you're not talking, this is not you wanting to sell more stuff, more products, more services. This is all about the audience. You should think every time you create a piece of content, I want you to be thinking, what is in it for the audience? Are we trying to help them get better jobs, live better lives in some way? What is the outcome for the audience? So these are the three parts so that when you do this at some point, so sometime later, get together with your team or individually, depending on if you're an entrepreneur or you actually have a content marketing team that works on this. You want to define your specific audience, and you need a different one of these for every audience. If you do a mission statement and you're targeting more than one audience, you probably won't be relevant enough to break through the clutter. So you want to have one for each audience. So if you have a blog and that blog is targeting, let's say, 3 or 4 different audiences, you're probably not going to be successful because it's not relevant enough. You want to be really focused on that one audience. So you might have to make a decision that you do a content marketing approach to one audience and not another until you get one up and running. Define the audience. What are you going to deliver? Something useful. And what is the outcome? What's in it for the audience? Remember, it's not about us at this point. It's about them. All right. The first two are all strategy. As you can tell, we haven't created any content yet, which is really important. And you need to know that we first want to have that strategy built, and then we can go on. So we've looked at the sweet spot. We're looking at the content tilt, and now we're going to build the base. This is, even though the content tilt is the most important one, building the base part, this is my favorite because it's such a simple formula. So here it is. Here's the simple formula that I'm going to give to you. It's probably, and this is what all of the case studies that we looked at in the book, they did the same thing. Why this is so important and this simple formula is, most companies are like, oh, we're going to create content. We're going to put it on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and any other social site, and we're going to get content out to everyone that we possibly can. That's actually not the way that it works for success with the case studies we looked at. Here's the success model. You're going to focus, for the most part, on one content type. Is it textual content, like an article? Is it video content? Is it audio content? And then I'm going to focus on that in one main platform. Is it my blog or website? Is it YouTube? Is it iTunes? I'm going to deliver consistently. Is it every Monday? Is it every Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Is it every Saturday at the same time, every week, every day, depending on what your frequency is, over a long period of time? And generally, we've seen it take at least 9 to 12 months to get something like this going. Now, I'm hoping if you use this formula, you can shorten that time period, but most of the case studies that we talked about in the book took about 12 months. Why is that? It takes time to build a loyal audience. You're building an asset for your organization. So this is the base. Let me give you some examples of how this works. Copyblogger, it's a global company. They sell search engine software solutions, online content tools that they sell. Brian Clark started Copyblogger with just a blog. He blogged for 19 months talking about, let me see if I have an example here to show you. Yeah, here's the type of thing that you'll get on Copyblogger's page. 3 resources that will help you craft smarter landing pages. And he blogs, different people in his organization would blog every day about these topics. He built up subscribers, over 100,000 subscribers over that time, and then was able to monetize that. I'll talk about that later. But basically, he focused on blog, textual content delivered through his own blog every day, and he did it for 19 months. And now he's a one of the fastest growing software as a service companies on the planet, but started simply with a blog. Let's go to another example. This is Jyske Bank. Jyske Bank is out of Denmark. They didn't want to spend money on soccer, football sponsorships that they were spending $2-3 million a year. They didn't want to do that anymore. They wanted to build their own video platform that they could build an audience. So they decided to build Jyske Bank Television. This is actually inside the bank. They actually have a tagline that says, "We are the only media company with its own bank." They started this by generating 24/7 video on their own website, consistently delivered every day, and they did that over a couple years' time. Now they become one of the leading media companies in all of Denmark, and they're a bank. So it's just amazing what this has been able to do, where they've been able to, now the companies that were charging them $2-3 million to sponsor those soccer tournaments, they're now asking Jyske Bank to come in and be a media partner for free instead of having to pay. Because why? Because they have an audience that those companies want to get in touch with. They have a valuable audience that they can now monetize. So again, the same thing. Video on their own website, consistently delivered over time. This is game theory. Game theory is something my kids watch. Matthew Patrick created this a few years ago, and he creates 12 to 17-minute videos once a week through game theory, and it's really amazing the success that he's had. He went from 0 a couple years ago to now 5 million subscribers on YouTube, billions of views, and he's built a multi-million-dollar company with literally no resources. And now even YouTube goes to him to consult on their algorithm. So a lot of the algorithm changes, they talk to Matthew because he understands their algorithm better than even they do it sometimes. But he's been able to grow this. Video on YouTube, delivered weekly. He did that over a year-plus period, and he built over 5 million subscribers, and now he's got a multi-million-dollar company. It's the same one for everyone we looked at. It's the same exact process going forward. So one content type, one platform, consistently delivered over time, instead of just pushing our content all over the place everywhere else. So I want to get you focused. I want you to focus on how you can build it. And by the way, that model has been used by media and publishing companies for 100 years. If you look at the greatest media companies of all time, that's the same model. So even though we've got all these social media channels, the same model works to build an audience over time. So now we built a base, and we go into harvesting the audience. So here I'm going to talk about social media a little bit. I'm a big believer in social media. I use a lot of social media, but I have a particular take on it. So let's look at Starbucks' Facebook page. They have 40 million fans Starbucks has on their Facebook page. When they do an update on their own Facebook page, guess how many people actually see that update? Of the 40 million as a percentage, how many people will see anything that they post on their Facebook page? And I'll just tell you what the answer is. The answer is less than 1%. Less than 1% of their fans will actually see that update. And Facebook has changed their algorithm, which they're entitled to do, where your fans used to be able to see your updates, and now Facebook will make the decision about whether or not your content gets seen at all. So we have no control over our communications on that platform. And then I don't know how much you use Google Plus. It's another platform. Starbucks has 3 million followers on their Google Plus platform, but now Google Plus is in restructuring. We don't even know what's going to happen to Google Plus. We have no control over it. So Starbucks has spent millions of dollars getting people to fan them on Facebook and to like them, +1 them on Google Plus, but yet they have no control over that, and it could be a lost expense up. They'll never get that money back because they can't communicate with those people. So this is what I want you to focus on. I want you to focus on something that you actually have control over, and that's email subscribers as the most important, as the key metric. Email is not dead. It's more alive than ever before. It's super important that you focus on email right now. Copyblogger at 200,000 email subscribers, and Copyblogger generates the majority of their money from their email subscribers, people that opt in and say, we like your content so much, we would like to receive it on an ongoing basis. This is Think Money magazine from TD Ameritrade, large financial company, trading company. This magazine goes out to heavy traders that trade stocks and futures 50, 100, 150, 200 times a day. What they found out is this is a mostly print and digital, but it's mostly print magazine that goes out to them. They found out that people that subscribe to this magazine trade 5 times more than those that don't. So whereas once they were looking to find, we don't want to do print necessarily. We want to be an innovative company. We don't know if print is the way to go. They found out that the behavior is significantly changed by people who get this magazine. And they don't talk about their products and services here. They just educate in this magazine. So here's my very, very sophisticated yay boo scale for subscribership. Now, by the way, look at all these subscribers on the left-hand side. They're all good. I mean, I like Facebook fans. I want every one of these. But you have to realize that you don't have control over most of these. And you have some control. So you have the most control at the top and the smallest amount of control at the bottom. We want to work our way up to get to the top if we can, where we actually have control. Because tomorrow you could get up, and not that this could happen, but it absolutely could, where Facebook says, sorry, you can't communicate with any of your fans on Facebook anymore. And LinkedIn might say, sorry, you can't communicate with any of your connections anymore on LinkedIn. Or whatever social channel or whatever forum you use that you're not in control of, they can absolutely take that away. So I want you to focus on email and print subscribers over everything else if possible. If you're familiar with BuzzFeed, a fast-growing media company, they've got some interesting content on that site. A lot of people look at them and say, but Joe, look at BuzzFeed. They leverage social media, and look how fast they've been able to grow. Look at BuzzFeed's calls to action. If you start going through their content on their website, you'll see that most of those calls to action go to email. This is BuzzFeed subscription. They have all kinds of email. They've got 50 different email newsletters out there that they want people to sign up for, because they know they cannot put all their eggs in the social media basket, because they need to have some control. If Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn said, oh, sorry, you can't have access to those people anymore tomorrow, BuzzFeed's business model would be in trouble. So they're trying to build that one-to-one connection through opt-in email as the core to this whole thing. Another example we talk about in the book, great podcast, Entrepreneur on Fire, John Lee Dumas. He has an iTunes subscriber audience. He's got hundreds of thousands of people that subscribe to him on iTunes, but he doesn't have any control over those subscribers. So he sends people to his website, and this is his website. First thing you see is join Fire Nation. Give me something he's giving something really valuable to get that email name, because he knows he's not in control of those iTunes subscribers. We do the same thing at Content Marketing Institute, where if you go to certain pages and then you click off of a page, we will show you a popover and say, hey, we would like to get your information, because the majority of our revenue at Content Marketing Institute comes directly from email. That's how important it is, and I want you to focus on, yes, social media connections are great. I want you to have those, but I want you to put those connections at a different scale than what you would email or print. So to do this, you have to have two things. You have to have an amazing e-newsletter, something that you're going to send consistently to those people so they can opt into something, and it really has to be amazing, because if you're checking email, most of that email is getting deleted or going to spam. How can you cut through the clutter and be that one or two emails that they're going to look at every day that's so valuable to them? The second thing, you have to have an exchange of value, an ebook, a research report, a white paper that's really valuable, so that somebody's willing to give up their email name so that they can get your piece of content, and then you can get the email name. All right, the last two that we're going to go through, we've done all these steps, we've harvested the audience now. Now we're going to diversify. So you built the base first, and now you're going to diversify into those other channels, instead of what most companies do is they diversify really quickly. They don't want to do that. I want you to focus on being the master of one of those channels, and then we're going to go over and diversify. Two different models. We call this the 3 and 3 model. If you want to grow your expertise from a personal standpoint, there's 3 things you need. You need an amazing blog, you need a book, like a real book, like a drop on your desk and makes a thump type of book, and you go out and you do public speaking. Those are the 3 things that we saw in the case studies that were consistent, that people trying to grow their own platforms. On the business side, it's the 3 legs of the stool: digital, print, and in-person. So you'll see what we see in the case studies is that if they have a really strong digital connection, you'll see them launch an event, or they'll launch a print publication that grows their audience and gets that the content out to more people, more of the right people, or even to the same people in different ways. So we looked at these are our statistics from data from Content Marketing Institute, and what we found is our magic number is 3. So what we looked at is, okay, let's say they sign up for an e-newsletter. Then we want to make sure that they sign up for Chief Content Officer Magazine, and then they sign up for one of our webinars or a podcast. But we know that if they can sign up for at least 3 things, they're much more likely to go to our event, Content Marketing World. They're much more likely to pay for content like training on our site. So we're not trying to sell them right away. We know that getting them to opt into an e-newsletter is just the start. So we want to be the octopus, right? We want to wrap our customers in as much content as we possibly can. But we have to first build the base to do that. So we built the blog for 3 years, and then we diversified moving forward. Let's go back to our good friend Andy Schneider, the Chicken Whisperer. So it launches the radio show, 20,000 weekly listeners, then diversifies. Writes the best-selling book available on Amazon, The Chicken Whisperer's Guide to Keeping Chickens. Of course, there's a book like that, and then launches the Chicken Whisperer magazine. Both have been very successful for Andy moving forward. Joy Cho, very famous, very successful designer now. Didn't always start out successful. How did Joy do it? Joy started with a blog in 2005. They did 3 very short blog posts every day, then diversified into books in 2010, and then diversified into Pinterest in 2011. She's now one of the most pinned people on Pinterest. She's been able to grow her audience. She's done deals with Microsoft and Target, the grocery store, and all kinds of other amazing different design integrations that she has. Multi-million-dollar company, super successful, but started very simply with the blog first and then diversified second into other areas. And we've done the same thing. I told you that we did the blog for basically the first 2 to 3 years, and then we launched the event Content Marketing World, and then we launched the magazine Chief Content Officer, and then we launched our podcast, This Sold Marketing Content Inc. So first build your audience, and then you diversify once you get to what we call a minimum viable audience. That's different for everyone. I would just suggest focus on an audience number that you feel is substantial enough to build a business on top of. Maybe it's 1,000 people for you. Maybe it's 5,000. For us, it was 10,000. For Matthew Patrick, in game theory, it was 500,000 because he was targeting he was targeting kids, which are a little bit harder to monetize, depending on because they're buying merchandise and whatnot. You don't have to build it, and this is for those of you with larger companies here, but I like to show this. It takes time and patience to build this program. So some people might say, well, let me buy it. Maybe if I can buy another blogger site, another media company site out there, we can get to that faster. And we've seen that. Couple of examples. JPEG Magazine. JPEG Magazine targets enthusiast photographers. That's what they talked about. They were a media company. And they were going bankrupt. 2009, a lot of people didn't want to support them through advertising. So they were going to go completely bankrupt. Adorama comes through and buys them. Adorama sells photography equipment. It was a perfect fit. So there's a lot of opportunities out there for that as well. And I don't know if you're familiar with the company HubSpot marketing automation company. They had a sales blog. They had a marketing blog. They wanted to launch an agency blog. Instead of launching it from scratch, they went out and bought Agency Post and integrated it into what they already do. So there's a lot of bloggers out there, media companies out there that maybe are really good at creating subscribers, but not really good at making money off of that, and where you can do a partnership deal or actually purchase that company. And this last portion, and then we'll get to questions, is monetization. So you've done the first 5 steps. Don't get me wrong. You want to think about making money from day one, but it takes, first you have to build that loyal relationship before you can make money. Here's the big question about how you make the difference. Well, we want to look at how we actually generate revenues from this, whatever size company. You want to look at and ask yourself, what's the difference between those who subscribe to my content and those that don't? That is the significant question. That's how we make all the money going forward, because the people that subscribe to our content behave differently. And then you can monetize that. Maybe you can monetize that through advertising and sponsorship like we do, or events. Maybe it's like Copyblogger, where they're going to sell actual products. Maybe it's like John Deere, where you're going to create more loyal customers. You have to think there's 9 different ways to make money off of your content. You have to figure out what makes the most sense to you and listen to your customers. Your customers will actually tell you what they want to buy. And that's what, in Copyblogger's situation, that's exactly what they did. They asked their subscribership, their audience, what they wanted to buy. And they told them, we need software services so that we can create better content management systems and better SEO on site. And he created a number of products that ultimately came into the form of something called Rainmaker, and that's how Brian Clark and Copyblogger were able to do it. Now they're a multi-million-dollar company, but first they built the audience. We talked about Think Money. Think Money magazine. How does Think Money make money off of their content? Because those people that subscribe to that magazine trade more. That's the behavior that they do differently, and that's why it's such a great initiative for TD Ameritrade that they're not going to cut. It's so important to them. River pools and spas. Marcus Sheridan installed fiberglass pools in eastern part of the United States. He was significantly hurting in 2007 and 2008 when we saw the Great Recession go on. Nobody wanted to install fiberglass pools anymore. He was fifth in his market. He was struggling. And what he did was he created a blog and he answered all of his customers' questions on a regular basis. How much does a fiberglass pool cost? What's the difference between a fiberglass pool and a concrete pool? Nobody else was asking these questions. He was able to do that, and he sold more fiberglass pools than any other company in North America in 2011. So went from fifth in just his market to selling more than any company in North America, and now he's become such a global brand that he's manufacturing pools. What we call, Doug Kessler from Velocity Partners in the UK calls revenue ripples. So when you build a loyal audience, amazing opportunities happen for you that you might not have expected. In River Pools case, now they're manufacturing pools, and they never thought that was going to happen. So I want you to create the plan, do the content marketing, keep doing it, be excited about it, but I want you to focus on building a loyal audience, which is the key. And I talked about this in the beginning. You can't just get somebody as a lead and hit them up right away. I mean, you can do that, but that's a short-term thing. I want you to look at the long term and how do you create value over time. And once you create that value that your customers know, like, and trust you, then you can extract that value. Then you can sell them something. So make sure that they know, like, and trust you first by delivering amazing information to them on an ongoing basis. I really believe that if you focus on the right content tilt, you can be the leading expert in your niche. And then a loyal audience will always lead to revenue. I just don't know how much time it's going to take for you. In general, in the book, it takes 12 to 18 months to get to some significant revenue findings. So you have to be patient as this goes. So we found there were a lot of case studies out there, and every one of them goes by the same 6-step model, which is the Content Inc. model, which is what we just went through with you. And so here's some of the things that I want you to take away. Find that niche where you can actually be the leading expert in the world. Develop that content marketing mission statement we talked about. Focus on your platform, right? Content type, platform, deliver consistently over time. Focus on, use social media, but don't build your house on rented land. You don't control that land. Focus on what you can control and build an audience of opt-in subscribers. To do that, you need a great e-newsletter, a remarkable download. Then you diversify into the 3 and 3, depending on if you're a small organization or a large organization, that print, digital, in person. Figure out what your subscribers then do differently as you're going into monetization. And you know that if you build an audience first, then you can extract that value and sell products to them. And the last thing I would just say is my recommendation, you have to be patient. It does take time to do this, to do it right, but I found that it is the most, those people that have Content Inc. models grow way faster once they build an audience, because the audience actually will end up buying whatever you want to sell because they know, like, and trust you so much. I hope you got your one thing. Hopefully I gave you a couple other things. And before we get to Q&A, Anton, I just want to throw this out. If you have people in your organization that don't get content marketing, this is a documentary we put together called The Story of Content. It's 43 minutes long. It's free. It's available on Amazon, or it's free available. It's The Story of Content. You can look at the video there. I highly recommend it for people that don't get it. If you have them watch that, they will absolutely get and understand content marketing after that. So you can get more information about the book at content-inc.com, free chapter, ebooks, all kinds of stuff. I have a podcast as well. And then Anton, I don't know if you want to go through some, it looks like we've got a lot of questions here. If you want me to go through that, or if you want to ask some of these to me, and we'll go through as many as we can.
Yeah, just pick one or pick all of them. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if you have a time.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, you want, let's say, okay, so Olga's asking, how can content marketing work for air conditioning sales? Olga, it's figure out, okay, so who are you targeting? Are you targeting the woman of the household, the man of the household? Probably the woman of the house, at least in the United States. They make the decisions about that. I don't know how it is in your neck of the woods, but figure out who you're targeting first, and then figure out what their pain points are, what keeps them up at night, what kind of information can you deliver to them that they aren't getting? I would assume that instead of that your customers don't care all the time about their air conditioning, but they do care about energy. They do care about saving money. So maybe you can create something about saving tips on an ongoing basis to them. And let's say as you go in for a service, maybe that you get them to sign up for your email newsletter because you're going to give them really good information as well as coupons or discounts ongoing. I've done a lot of work in the air conditioning sales area. That works really well to do that, or something around energy savings. But it's the consistent delivery. So you have to figure out, are you going to do this every week? Is it a monthly email? So start thinking about those things. But most importantly, do the strategy first. Who are you targeting, and what do you want them to get out of it? Is it more cost savings, ongoing? What's really important to them? And go talk to your customers about it. What's keeping them up at night? What things do they want to know? And you can do what Marcus Sheridan did at River Pools and Spas. And he basically just asked his customers what they wanted to know, and then every one of those questions became a blog post or a piece of content after the fact. Let's see, other questions coming in. Let's see.
Yeah, it's on the left. There is some comments as well.
Okay, so we've got one at the top here. Isn't it already late to hop on a trend if it is rising, and how long will it rise? So I don't know if you're talking about content marketing. So if you're talking about content marketing as a trend, yes, everybody's hopping on board.
No, I think
Go ahead.
I think the question was, as was a long time ago when you were talking about trends. And
the Google trends?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. If you look at the Google trends, I don't want you to look at anything on the top or any terms that are used for the most part now. I want you to look at those breakout terms. The breakout terms are new things, new searches that people are typing in that are outliers. They're much higher today than they were just a few weeks ago, and that's where the opportunity is, where people aren't necessarily focusing on those right now. So yes, absolutely. I don't want you to say, oh, like knitting. Everybody's on knitting. Who's going to want to look at my knitting blog? But if you look at something that is new and different, and people are just getting interested in now, that might be an opportunity. So I would look at that area.
Okay, you have more questions?
It is expected that a large growth of the Internet of Things until 2020. Does that mean more opportunities for content marketing? I think that, as I was sort of bringing up a second ago, there is a huge opportunity in the practice of content marketing because most of your competition is doing it wrong. And there's always pain points that your customers have. So there's always another niche tomorrow. The opportunity for you, and why content marketing is big today, and it was tougher 15 years ago, is because it doesn't cost as much money to communicate with your customers. In the past, 15 years ago, if you wanted to do this, you'd have to spend $100,000+ to build a content management system, put that all together, and then how are you going to reach your customers? Today, you don't have the cost of a content management system. You can reach them through all different kinds of means, and your audience has control. They will let you in if your content is good enough. I don't know if it's going to go till 2020. I can tell you in the next couple of years, it looks really good for this. And it just depends. Hey, if you've got a lot of money and you got a lot of budget, absolutely go advertise. If you have a short term, if your short term is, hey, what are we going to do in the next 5 to 6 months? Great, go ahead and do that. But most people don't have the type of advertising budget, and we don't want to waste that kind of money. Build an asset over time, I think, is the best way to do it. And if you do that, I think you can grow faster down the road. Let's see. Abbas is saying content formation and marketing is a great topic. Even big brands and blogs failed in this regard. Yes. We work with mostly big global brands at Content Marketing Institute. And for the most part, they're focusing on just campaigns. They'll here's a 6-month campaign on content, and then they'll totally stop doing it. So they'll build a relationship with an audience, and then they'll completely stop. And I can't say the name of these companies because we work with them and we're trying to help them out. But in almost every case, we go in and it's very short term, or it's very focused on their own products and services that they want to sell. And then they're realizing, well, why is nobody reading the blog? Why is nobody paying attention? Well, that's because the content's not useful, and you didn't wait long enough to build a relationship with your audience. The other thing is they're looking at other indicators. They're looking at things like likes and web traffic, and which is fine. Their vanity metrics are fine. But I want you to focus on building an audience like a media company was, and it would. And I think that's where the value is. And maybe Anton, maybe we have time for one more question. And I don't know if you wanted to throw one out.
No, it's okay. I think you had a question. What content marketing tools do you use, from Tatiana?
If you're going to do any of this, if you're going to do any of this, the tools that you really need is you need a really good content management system. I would recommend WordPress as a content management system because it's the content management system that's used by the majority of the world, and it's search engine friendly. So I would look at that. There's a lot of different platforms that work with WordPress, so I'm not going to recommend those specifically. And then you need a really first-rate email system. If you're a small company, whether you're looking at a MailChimp or an Emma or a Constant Contact or something like that, you need something simple there. If you're a larger company, you might want to look at a marketing automation system like an Acton, a Marketo, and Oracle Eloqua, those types of companies, a HubSpot, that would help you a little bit more determine what content your audience is engaging with over time, so you can see the difference. So it's email, but it's more than email because you can see behavior ongoing. So those are the ones that I would absolutely say you have to have: email and content management system if you're going to build your program online and digitally. So,
okay, we have a lot. The last question, just last question. No, last question, and after that, thank you. Okay, just last question from webinar.fm.
People say visual content do better as compared to textual. Do you believe that? Visual content is important. It's a great question, but when we did the research, we see people succeeding in visual content, in audio content, and textual content. I see all of them. And even starting today. So it really depends on where you think you're going to tell your differentiated story and what makes the most sense. Do you have a story that's best told in audio? Do you have a story that's best told in video? Is it something that's best told in text? For us, text is the best one. We have an image with every one of our blog posts, but for the most part, every day, it's just textual content. Ongoing video series doesn't work as well for our audience because in a lot of cases, we're targeting marketers that are traveling to work. They're in the subway. They don't have time to look at something, so audio makes more sense, and that's why our podcast has taken off more, because they can listen to the audio whenever they want. So I would think about a lot of those things. Visual is definitely important for anything that you do, the visual, but it doesn't have to be video. It doesn't have to be infographic. You can be successful in any way and look at how you're going to tell that story differently.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Joe, and I hope we'll see you here again one day.